So lots of talk about motion for branding or motion design for branding, systems or motion graphic design systems, motion graphic systems, but no one mentions about responsive and adaptive features. Now, without these two features, you can't really have a system, nor can you really have motion graphics or motion design for branding. Because the whole idea of a system, the whole idea of branding, to a very, very large extent, is consistency. You need consistency, otherwise it's not branding, is it? So, what are responsive features? As you can see here, I've got this little animation. Essentially 3 components, 2 text layers, one at the top and one at the bottom. And then there's a container for the text at the bottom here. Now, so responsive feature is this. As I change the text, the design stays consistent, the animation stays consistent. So in this sense, it's repeatable regardless of the content that's there. So how is this done? Well, there's quite a fair bit of expressions. Expressions is the language built into After Effects for coding, right? So you need to combine code with your keyframes for animation. Alright, now you've got stuff like that. Now I'm going to change the bottom text. Oops, there's an extra vertical pipe in there. Okay. So that's responsive. Different elements or different assets will respond to changes in other assets. So the coding is a way of developing intelligent systems or intelligent assets, something I call intelligent design assets. Every asset knows what the other assets are doing, and they all sort of talk to each other. And regardless of what happens with the text or graphics, if there were graphics here, things will always look consistent in terms of their layout, in terms of their animation, and then in terms of their look and feel. Okay, next we're going to look at adaptive feature. Now I've got this setting here which actually sets my frame size. So I'm going to set it the width to 1500, and you can see that's what 1500 width looks like. Now if I were to do a RAM preview, you can see the motion looks the same, design is exactly the same, layout is exactly the same, and this is what we're talking about, consistency across different use cases and even frame sizes. Okay, now if I were to take motion away, now I only have graphics at the top. This is what it's going to look like. Now there will be issues if the top text had too few characters, and this is where we build rules. Okay, just as you have brand guidelines and things like that, you also have editorial guidelines. So one way to get around issues like this is to add more rules into the code. For example, if you have too few characters, then you would either make the top text larger in terms of its font size, or you may scale it up, or you shrink down the bottom one. So you need to build rules into your branding system or your motion branding system or motion design branding system. And these are basic rules that will not hinder your design or messaging. And it's very typical if we want consistency. We gotta give some leeway to how little or how much text. For example, you're not gonna have a three liner at the top here. Okay, so that's a quick introduction to responsive and adaptive features. Next, we're going to look at something a lot more familiar when it comes to motion for branding, and that's our lower third. Right, so we've all seen this, but what's unique about this lower third is that it's got built-in responsive features. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Going to come up here. It's got little suffix. Let's assume we don't need that. I'm going to take it away. And what if we change the names a little bit? So as you can see, everything just readjusts or adjusts itself perfectly. And I can also remove information that I don't want. See that? So even as you remove lines, you get a consistent look. Animation still works. And there were other pieces of information that were not there. I could put today's date. All right, there it is. I could put in additional information here. This geo is short for geographical. Okay, let's try and preview this. So we're getting to 10 minutes. I was hoping to set this to under 10 minutes. So that's pretty cool, isn't it? Yeah. Everything just automatically works. And if you know After Effects, you know everything here, every element, every text, every color can be hooked up or linked to a spreadsheet so you can produce hundreds or thousands of these at one go if you have to. It's pretty heavy in terms of the code that is in there. So each item you see here, each text item is an expression, and it could have one or more lines, and usually it's more than one line, obviously, because you've got to build logic. And then you could build one, and from that single design, you can create many other variations or versions based simply on the frame size. So this is adaptive motion graphics again. So how I did this was I created one. It was in HD 1080, and then I ran it through a script, and it created the others automatically, resizing them where it needed to, reanimating them. Essentially, everything's recalculated for each different frame size, which we saw earlier in our example here. So you're not limited to text, but graphics. This was an animation, video file, and then made into an animation with some visual effects stuff thrown in. So when you talk about motion design for branding, you need to have responsive features and adaptive features. Otherwise, no art director, no branding manager, no creative director is going to want to talk to you because they know about motion design much more than anyone else who's been doing motion graphics. They know they need a solution which is reusable, scalable to the extent where where it can be reused in different use cases, right? With different content and also with different frame sizes. What's missing for most people is the coding part, and that's where people like me and others who are specialists in this area. You bring your design, and then we'll guide you. Okay, you want to build this, and that. All right. Now, these are the rules we need to put in place in terms of how many lines of text, how big is this text, how small is the font size, so on and so forth. And you get it done. And that's how it's done for web and mobile apps and things like that. Okay? There are developers who specialize in the coding side of things. Then you've got your designers who do the design. You're not supposed to do everything. Hopefully this has been a good introduction to what responsive and adaptive features are and why they're super critical to developing motion design for branding. Right? We're talking about solutions here.